Hello parents, it's Mr. Holiday here. I just want to give you an introduction to the Term 1 reports that you're about to receive. There's a slight difference in the appearance of them, and I just want to talk you through some differences. I've got an example here of the primary report and the secondary report. They're very, very similar. As always, the Term 3 report will have all the detailing and comments against each subject and targets against each subject. The Term 1 report is into two parts. The first part is a table. Has all the subjects down the left-hand side, their attitude to learning, what their goal is for the end of the year. You'll recognise these from last year. And then the teacher assessment for where they are performing at the end of Term 1, and then the progress that they're making against their flight path for their end of year goal. I'm going to give you some examples just to help orientate you with understanding all of that. As you go past that, there will be a general comment about your child and how they've been performing across the different subjects and in their introduction back into school after the Term 3 of distance learning. And then there's a key here. So attitude to learning, 1, 2, 3 and 4, you'll know what that means. Attainment judgements, whatever the letter in this column, you'll know what that means. And the progress judgements, you'll know what that means. That will be included on your reports. I just want to give you a bit of detail about how we come to these judgments. And it's similar to secondary, but with slightly different terminology. Now there's a small difference between primary and secondary, and that's just the terminology. The essence is still the same. All the attainment judgments are against ARE, age-related expectations, and that's where the student should be at the end of the academic year against curriculum standards for the British curriculum. So when secondary say WB and primary say W1, they both mean student is working below age-related expectations. WT or W2, W2 plus means the student is working towards age-related expectations. WA, W3 means the student is working at age-related expectations, and so on and so on. Each student will be given an individual flight path, and that flight path is when they're making expected progress from their individual starting point. The individual starting point is gained from triangulation of data. It uses the teacher assessment, and it uses the GL outcomes, and it uses the Cat 4 outcomes. So I'll give you an example. If I had a student in maths and their GL gave them a stay 9 of 4 and their Cat 4 quantitative score gave them a score of 93, it puts them in that bracket, I can see clearly that their individual starting point is here. So that would mean I'd give them an end of year goal of a W2 plus. If they make expected progress, that's where I'd expect them to come out at the end of the academic year against age-related expectations. Then I've got an expected progress flight path. In Term 1, I'd expect them to be on a W1. In Term 2, I'd expect them to be on a W2. And by the end of Term 3, I'd expect them to be on a W2 plus. Then at any point along that flight path, I can work out if they're making expected progress or not. For instance, at the end of Term 1, if this child is achieving and attaining a W1, they're making at expected progress. If they're actually on a B, they're making below expected progress. And if they're actually on a W2, they're making above expected progress because it's against their flight path. At the end of Term 2, if that child is attaining a W2 level, they're making expected progress against their individual starting point. If they're on a W1, they're below expected progress. If they're on a W2 plus, they've made better than expected progress. And I can do that each term. Because it's against individual starting points, some children will have different flight paths. So I might have one child who scored a 6 or a 7 on their stay 9s, and their Cat 4 was maybe 117, puts them at the top of this bracket. So their end of year expected progress goal might be a W3 plus. So at the end of Term 1, I'd expect them to be on a W2 and a W2 plus at the end of Term 2, and a W3 at the end of term 3. And then at the end of term 2, if they're actually on a W2 plus, they are making above expected progress. And that's how I calculate progress judgments all the way through the year, and I can track how a child is performing. In secondary, it's exactly the same. The flight path is the same, but instead of the W1s or W2s, W2 pluses, W3s, they'll be using the WB, WT, WA, WA plus terminology. Hope that helps clarify the attainment and progress judgments that you're going to see on these term 1 reports.